Welcome to Crossroads. Artificial intelligence could be the next dot-com bubble, and when it pops, well, it could send massive shockwaves through the economy. Now, look, on another topic, the Department of Education is now coming to an end officially, and that's right. They're now getting rid of the Department of Education and have a plan on doing it. So it's actually moving forward. And also, meanwhile, as the United States weighs possible strikes in Mexico and is taking stronger efforts to take down the drug cartels, like blowing up their boats, well, the Department of Justice has identified a drug kingpin they say is the next El Chapo. And guess where he is? He's in Canada. We're now dealing with Canadian drug cartels. I'll be talking about these topics and a lot more today. But first, did you all see my new documentary, Truth Under Fire, The Framing of Charlie Kirk? It was great talking with some of you last night on the special live Q&A. The documentary came out last night. If you haven't watched it yet, the link is in the description. It's completely free to watch no matter where you are, but it's only going to be free to watch until 6 p.m. today, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want to watch it, go to epochtv.com, epochtv.com. You just register there, links in the description. And after that, if you're a subscriber, it's of course free still as part of the package. But if you're not a subscriber, you can watch it now without having to subscribe. Now, I made this documentary really because I wanted to set the narrative really straight on Charlie Kirk's legacy. If I'm just going to be blunt, I feel that Charlie Kirk's legacy is being dragged through the mud right now. I think Charlie Kirk stood for something important. I think in the weeks after his death, the country was going through something very valuable. It really looked like there was an awakening taking place in America. And I feel that we've kind of already lost track of that. So I hope this documentary can at least memorialize what was happening, if not continue that trend. But I believe that this can help continue that trend. A positive development to this country, taking a positive lesson from something negative, making him a martyr, not some conspiracy. It was a lot of work putting this together, interviewed a lot of great people, a lot of travel for this one. I hope you all found it informative also because, again, I think it's an important documentary. All right, that said, if you haven't watched it yet, link in the description, but also go to epochtv.com and watch it. And be sure to share it too. That said, folks, look, for his first story of the day, artificial intelligence, they're saying could be the new dot-com bubble. And that could be bad for the economy. They're saying when it pops, this is going to send just total shockwaves through the economy because guess what? A lot of companies just jumped in on it. Like a huge number of companies just jumped in on it. And it wasn't a ship capable of carrying that weight. Let's put it that way. Already major investors are issuing warnings. They're saying, hey, that was not a good idea. It's going to pop. Get ready for it. And the stock market is already showing the effects of this, actually. In fact, New York Post said this. So the Dow Jones industry average plunged nearly 500 points. That's 1.1% on Tuesday, as fears over an AI bubble shook the market, and traders fretted that rate cuts from the Federal Reserve are not a sure thing. So, being fair, was it concerns about AI or concerns about the Fed maybe not cutting rates that caused this? You be the judge. But they're saying it's a bit of both. But it says this also. It was fourth straight decline for the blue chip index and the S&P 500, which dipped 0.8%. The tech-heavy NASDAQ slid 1.2% as investors panicked over whether AI firms have been overvalued, extending a rocky tech rout into its third week. I think the good question is, what is the profit potential of artificial intelligence? Not the use. Everybody's talking about the use. Hey, it's better than Google. I can use it instead of Google. Hey, if you're a filmmaker, maybe you can make some 3D scenes using AI or something. Maybe you can use it as an artist to an extent, or you're getting fired as an artist to an extent. I'd actually say AI is probably going to take away more jobs than it creates, probably by a long shot. But the big question is, how do you make money with it, right? And on that point, is AI making more money or is it costing more money? The biggest area really is just businesses replacing workers using AI. And in terms of actual value, like currently that's kind of the main thing. But the problem is they're finding AI is kind of schizophrenic, and it's basically hallucinating. We'll get into that in a minute, but it says there, shares in NVIDIA fell nearly 3%. The chip maker is reporting its third quarter results on Wednesday, the end of an especially upbeat earnings season. But Magnificent Seven tech stocks have dropped amid fears that AI enthusiasm is reminiscent of the dot-com bubble of the 1990s and early 2000s. So where are we at? Now, briefly, when it comes to the dot-com bubble, a lot of people would say, well, look at where the internet is now. Obviously, it worked. Obviously, all that investment in internet infrastructure and businesses went somewhere. Yeah, that's true. The issue is that you gambled on it. If you were an investor during the dot-com bubble, you were gambling. A lot of companies failed. A lot of infrastructure was built that did not prove to be profitable. A lot of people went belly up, and a handful of them became crazy, like multi-billionaires. You just had to kind of put your hand in the right pot, but it was a huge gamble. Some people argue the dot-com bubble, what it did do is that it created the infrastructure that basically led to the modern internet. And people did find ways to make money on the internet. They did, but you had a whole lot more failed than succeeded. And AI could be the same thing. The challenge with AI in the economy, as I mentioned briefly, it's whether you can monetize it. Like, how do you make money with AI? That's the big question, right? Is it just something to help businesses cut costs, like they fire half their workforce? Is it something to help coders code? I know a lot of people who code who swear by it. They say it's extremely useful, and maybe on that front it is very useful. Can it help a writer replace human creativity? Or is it noticeable? Or songwriters do things? The question is if you create massive amounts of product and you basically allow everyone to do it, you risk devaluing the entire industry. For example, if you're a company now and you want to hire a graphic designer to do a logo, are you going to pay like $3,000 or $500,000, depending on what it is, for a designer? Or are you going to have some random guy go shoot something up on AI and make something on AI? It's probably going to be AI, and someone's going to lose a lot of money. In other words, it doesn't create value. It actually loses value on that front. And the other point too, the company paying for a service, are they going to pay an equal amount for the AI product, or are they using AI because it's going to cost a whole lot less money? The reality is they'll probably be spending a whole lot less money. So businesses might make more money, but AI itself might not make that much money. That's the concern with it. Not to mention energy infrastructure. But on another point, this is why it's being compared to the dot-com bubble. You had a lot of businesses come up, hey, let's build internet infrastructure, let's build internet businesses, and a lot of them went nowhere. A lot of them went nowhere. In fact, the overwhelming majority went nowhere. But again, it did lead to a handful of people making a lot of money, but most people lost money. Now, like the other big issue, as I briefly mentioned, is, hey, let's say all these big companies go to AI, they fire half their staff. They're like, great, I'm going to fire 90% of my workforce and replace them all with AI. I'm in. And then they find that AI can't really replace people. And here's why. It turns out AI is kind of schizophrenic. It's schizophrenic. It has what they call hallucinations. It's kind of crazy. Now, Study Find said this: mental health researchers relying on ChatGPT to speed up their work should take note of an unsettling finding from Austrian researchers. It says the AI chatbot gets citations wrong or invents them outright more than half the time. Imagine that. Imagine you hire a guy to go I don't know, write a research paper for you, and he comes back and it's like a really well-researched paper. And then you look into it and you're like, okay, let me check these links. This is so interesting. Let me check these sources. And you check the sources and he just made up all the sources. That's what AI is doing. Okay. It's the same thing. There have been law firms that have tried using AI, And they've found that AI has fabricated precedents, like fabricated fake history of legal precedents. Same thing with journalists. You have some journalists using it, and they're running into the same thing. You know, so they're having some problems with it. Now, if you were to ask me what my opinion is on like why this is, I personally think this is something they cannot overcome with a technology meant to be imaginative, because it's the difference of expansive knowledge versus existing knowledge, right? Artificial intelligence is different from conventional computers in that it's expansive. It's supposed to be a learning technology. It's supposed to be creative, right? In other words, it's supposed to go beyond the basis of what currently exists. Older computer systems, it's binary, right? It's 0, 1, 0, 1, and so on. And basically, it's just a filing system. If you were to break down how a conventional computer works, it's basically a big file cabinet, right? So if you're using Mac OS or you're using Windows, what are you doing? All you're doing is interacting with a file system. You click on a folder, it pulls up, filed in X location. When you double click it, you just make a command to open file, X location. The entire basis of a computer can be summed up like this. You retrieve, you edit, and then you put it back. So you tell your computer, retrieve this file for me. It presents you with the file. You can then edit the file, whether it's creating graphics or movements or calculations, or you're changing a text document, and then you put it back. Or you rename it and create a different file. That's all computers do. That's the basis of how computers work. Now, conventional internet infrastructure worked on basically being able to search within that existing file, right? So like Google search or search engines prior to AI could only search within the boundaries of existing information. AI being machine learning means it's supposed to go beyond that, right? And this is my take on all this, right? Artificial intelligence mimicking human intelligence is supposed to go beyond the boundaries of existing knowledge. So it can create, it can build new things hypothetically, it can imagine, so-called. It can do logical analysis even. And so how do you program something to think? That is the challenge, because thinking means you're moving outside the box of existing knowledge. Now, the natural problem you have when you move outside the box of existing knowledge is if you create a system capable of that, you're going to end up with the same problems humans have. Schizophrenia, imagining stuff, I don't know, maybe being lazy, I don't even know. You're going to have all kinds of problems. And these are things that we don't really know how to figure out yet, because we can't even figure them out in ourselves, let alone a computer. And so if you use a technology, for example, for an industry that's meant to only look inside this box, you're doing legal analysis, only look in the box, right? Because you can only pull from existing knowledge. If you're doing research for, let's say, medical science, only search within the box. That's how you do it. If you work for a law firm and you want to search legal precedents, only search within the box. Don't imagine, because you can't do that with certain industries. And so when you create a technology designed to do this, you're always going to have problems. In other words, it cannot really serve the function of this, which is what a lot of people are trying to do with it, actually. What it can create, though, is this. So in my opinion, it is useful for example, maybe being a research assistant. Hey, find me a document. Maybe it's a more powerful search engine. You stay within the box. If you want to maybe, maybe not do a final design, but do a mock-up, it's useful. It's very useful. If you're a coder, hey, search this code and find where the errors are taking place, which for coders, and I'm a journalist who learned to code, I know how that is. Finding which code is causing an error and how to fix it is a nightmare, especially if you have like a lot of code. So it can fix that. So AI is useful on those types of things, detection, quick reaction, that kind of stuff. But it's not useful for what a lot of people are trying to use it for. And that's the problem. A lot of people are treating it as something it's not, and is not even meant to be. They're trying to treat it like this, but it's supposed to be this. You know, you can maybe in the future we'll find a way to balance it, but right now, a lot of people don't understand it, and they're using it for things it's not meant to be used for. One of the biggest issues of this trait also, you know, this hallucinating trait, it puts the integrity of artificial intelligence at risk. Because look, the reality is if you have all these big CEOs and big companies now saying, hey, great, let me fire half my staff and use AI to make our Excel sheets or, I don't know, presentations or whatever else, and they just get, or research papers or anything, and they just fire everybody, and they replace it with AI, they find it's not able to do what they thought. And so what happens? They divest, they pull out, they realize it doesn't work. And let's be honest, a lot of people are not that tech savvy, especially not, you know, guys at the top, right? And so when it doesn't meet the expectation, what happens? They pull out and then the bubble bursts. And now that's not to say it's not going to go somewhere. Now, in my opinion, there are people even pretty deep in the industry right now. They're saying the AI market is not what most of us expected. And they're saying the rapid growth is the problem, right? The rapid growth is the issue. It's not saying it's not going to become something else in the future, but again, people are making it into something it's not designed to be. It is not that, in fact. BBC said this. It says AI tech companies has soared in recent months, and companies spend big on the burgeoning industry. It says, asked whether Google would be immune to the impact of the AI bubble bursting, Mr. Pichai said the tech giant could weather the potential storm, but also issued a warning stating, quote, I think no company is going to be immune, including us. Now, why is no company going to be immune? Because they went all in on it before it was ready. And they believed it could do things that it was not meant to do. And they thought it could replace things that it is not capable of replacing. And they were all a bit too hasty. And they're now reaping the consequences of their decisions. Now, in my personal take, I think what's going to end up happening, you're going to see people realize conventional internet infrastructure has its place, AI has its place. And they're going to say, this is better for these purposes, this is better for these purposes. And you're going to see a division take place of which technologies are useful where. I do think AI is going to be extremely useful for things like active translations, compiling things, doing summaries, data summaries. I think it can work as a good assistant. Scammers are going to go bonkers because they love it, unless they can find a way to stop all the scammers. It's going to be very useful for big data management. Unfortunately, very useful for like totalitarian surveillance and policing. It's also going to be very useful for search engines, because if they can take the power of AI and apply it to search infrastructure, it's very useful. But the other thing people don't note is whether it is profitable for the companies to do it, because this is the other problem with AI. For you and I, when we jump on a search engine, we type in, hey, find me a recipe for, I don't know, like my breakfast today. Find me a waffles recipe. Normal Google infrastructure or whatever you use will search and, find a few results. And, it's not as good as it used to be. Like Google search kind of is terrible these days. A lot of people are turning to AI as a replacement for search engines. I've started doing that because, frankly, I think Google is just horrible. It doesn't find me anything. It'll give you a bunch of corporate news outlets and a bunch of like Wikipedia garbage. You know what I mean? Like, it's not what I was looking for, dude. And so the difference, though, because for you and I, the difference between using a conventional search engine or AI is no different. It's just using this. But on the back end, there's a difference in cost. Artificial intelligence has to use a massive amount of energy. It's actually very expensive to serve you those results. And the question is the benefit to the company, does it cost them more to provide you the service than they're making from it. And that is the problem you're going to start having. If it costs them more to provide you search results from artificial intelligence versus a conventional search engine system, it's not sustainable. And if it's not sustainable, it either means the ad markets need to adjust to serve ads, but people don't want ads these days. One of the reasons they're even going to AI is because they don't want all those ads, meaning it can't even be monetized. Then what happens? It's not feasible. It's not practical. And because it can't stand up in the market, there's no incentive for the companies to continue allowing for that because it costs them money. That is the big challenge you're going to have with it. Now, look, on another topic, though, the Trump administration looks like it's going after many key figures who were involved in the whole big Trump-Russia narrative. I'll be talking more about this after we come back from a quick break.
All right, just to pause here for a super quick moment. You are, of course, watching Crossroads with Joshua Philipp. I'm just here to share a message about American Hartford Gold, my own personal gold and silver bullion dealer. Now, obviously, the recent tariffs have made the markets super turbulent and volatile. With every new piece of tariff news, the markets seem to either crash up or crash down. And of course, it's worth mentioning that these conditions don't only affect Wall Street. They affect all of us through our investments and our retirement accounts. That's why I'd like to introduce you to a company that I trust and I myself use to secure my own savings, American Hartford Gold. They specialize in helping Americans move our assets into something tangible, into something you can actually hold, which is physical gold and physical silver, two precious metals that act as a hedge against all those decisions being made in Washington, D.C. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They have thousands of 5-star reviews, and they make the whole buying process super simple. Your metals can be shipped directly to your door, or you can transfer your current retirement account to a tax-advantaged gold IRA. And the best part is that right now, American Hartford Gold is offering an exclusive offer. When you call them today and you mention the name Joshua, you could receive up to $15,000 in free silver with your initial investment. Take advantage of their special offer. You can either just call them at 877-260-2764 or text Joshua to 65532. All their information will also be down in the description box below. And now, back to Crossroads.
Welcome back. The Trump administration appears to be going after many key figures who were involved in the whole Trump-Russia narrative, and also into many key figures involved in the legal attacks against Trump when Joe Biden was president. Meaning, kind of everybody who was trying to remove Trump from office or throw him in prison and so on is now being investigated. Now, is that the weaponization of justice, or is Trump going after and dismantling the weaponization of justice? In my personal take, I'd say who done it first, and I'd say actually the Trump-Russia thing, without a doubt, was a form of weaponization of justice. But we'll see with this, right? Because right now what's happening is a close associate of former counsel Jack Smith has been referred for prosecution. And why does that matter? Because it means they get his communications. It means they can investigate him and maybe go after other people. PJ Media said this: the House Judiciary Committee has referred a close associate of disgraced Biden administration attack dog, they say, Jack Smith, for criminal prosecution, one of his guys, right? It says, unconstitutionally appointed DOJ Special Counsel Jack Smith, which technically he was appointed through unconventional means. You could say because of his previous position, he was not technically legally appointed. There's some arguments on it, but I think it actually holds up that it might have been unconstitutional. But regardless, he was appointed. And it says, and his team conducted one of the most politically charged legal campaigns in history against Donald Trump. And it's true also, most of the charges against Trump, most of the attacks against Trump, a lot of it was novel interpretation of the law. A lot of it was unprecedented. Most of it was things we've never seen done before. Some of it even required changing of laws to, for example, get rid of a statute of limitations briefly to allow for the charges to be brought. And when the charges were brought, almost every case involved something that has never been done before. So a lot of it was unprecedented. Now, it notes that the House Judiciary Chairman, Jim Jordan, issued a press release on November 19th announcing he referred Thomas Wyndham, the former senior assistant special counsel to Jack Smith, to the Trump Bondi Department of Justice for criminal prosecution. It says Wyndham refused to answer almost every question during a deposition. I plead the fifth. I don't remember. And just keep saying that. You'd be all right. It says the referral urges Attorney General Pam Bondi to investigate potential violations of 18 U.S.C. 1505, which involves illegal actions obstructing a congressional investigation. So they're essentially saying obstruction of justice. But on the Congress side, right? Not like the Justice Department. Because they're trying to do their investigation, and they're saying that by basically not cooperating with anything or not answering any questions, that he's doing that. Now, on that point, that's going to be difficult because according to the Constitution, you don't have to say things to incriminate yourself. The question is, to what extent can you do that, right? When you plead the fifth, you're inciting your constitutional rights, right? And so the question is he doing something illegal by just not answering questions? And is that obstruction of Congress in this case? Or is it something else? They say this, though. They say Wyndham did obstruct the investigation into Jack Smith, and his weaponization of justice in more than one way, the committee accuses. So we might see other stuff. It says Wyndham, the Judiciary Committee believes, has important first-hand information about Smith, which he refuses to disclose, an internal corrupt effort to thwart the committee's inquiry. Now, is that the case? Innocent till proven guilty. We can't prescribe guilt until something has gone through trial or someone pleads guilty. But what we can say as of now, we're seeing a pattern here. This is not just one case. You're seeing a lot of people being recommended for charges. You're seeing a lot of people facing indictments. And a lot of these are major figures who have been active in a system attacking Trump, going back basically 10 years. This goes all the way back to the Trump-Russia scandal. And among the people being charged is even former FBI Director James Comey, facing charges on this. Now, on these points, though, the big accusation from Trump tends to be around the various scandals like the Trump-Russia hoax, the fake story, or on other attacks on him and those around him, such as illegal spying, right? FISA abuse, or Arctic frost. The whole scandal is even investigating most Republicans and most Republican organizations. Or the broader alleged weaponization of the federal government that even included mass censorship campaigns. So were the legal attacks, were the novel interpretations of law in order to bring those charges, were the media narratives, were the mass censorship efforts, which were targeting a lot of these same things, oftentimes just one side of the political aisle, were the pre-dawn raids, were the scandals, were the fabrication of reports circulated, was the illegal spying all part of a conspiracy? Well, that's what they're trying to find out, right? We don't know right now. We can say, looking at the collection of evidence, that it looks a bit fishy, but maybe we'll find out if that was intentional. Because right now they're saying it was just they're saying it was a result of bias, basically, that people wanted so bad for it to be real that they just believed it was real. So who knows? But as of right now, a lot of the charges coming out are really basic. So they're not facing things like sedition. They're not facing things like conspiracy to, overthrow the president of the United States, or, using a fake process to impeach him or something, or throw him in prison. It's not things like that. They're being charged with things like lying to Congress, things like real estate crimes, things of that sort. But the big picture here is this. Even though the charges many of them are facing are unrelated to the broader accusations, when you charge somebody, you're able to more deeply investigate them. And so what happens when they refer someone for charges? It triggers an investigative process. What is that investigative process? It means it opens the books, so to speak. They get the emails, they get the text messages, they get other records, they get financial documents, they get everything, right? When you're being criminally investigated, you're going to have a very bad time. It sucks, right? You're going to have a very bad time. And if you've been plotting against the President of the United States, you're probably going to have an even worse time, especially if you didn't delete those records and they can't retrieve them. You're going to have a very bad time. And so that's the big question here. Will these investigations trigger branching investigations into what they believe might exist? Maybe we'll find out, maybe we won't. But a lot of people are now being referred to minor charges, alongside what are broader investigations into major allegations. You see, major allegations, minor charges, and we'll see if that changes. Now, like on another topic, the Department of Education is now coming to an end. It was an experiment, and that experiment resulted in children who are graduating, going to college, and they can't read. Just the News said this. The Trump administration on Tuesday announced its detailed plan to dismantle the federal government's education department, which is apparently the acronym ED, which is funny, right? Now it says the plan calls for transferring responsibilities from the department to 5 other federal departments. It also attempts to make good on Trump's campaign promise to shutter the department and return education to the states, a longtime goal of conservative-minded lawmakers before and with Trump. In other words, because this is going to be the allegation, Trump's going to close all the schools. He's going to make children, educated by like Sesame Street, unless he defunds PBS also. I don't know. He's going to remove all the education stuff. What's going to happen to the teachers? Won't somebody think of the children? That's the allegation. The reality is getting rid of the education department is not going to close the schools. The purpose of this is to put the private schools back under the states and to use federal government money to basically support that. Meaning things like state-run, like federal-run, absolute everybody, same education system will go away. That only started in the United States really during the Obama administration with Common Core education. And Common Core education has been an absolute disaster on math proficiency, real history, because they did a lot of fake history, even bringing in the New York Times 1619 project, which their own fact checker said was fake, and they published it anyways. That has reformed American education. DEI policies, diversity, equity, inclusion, ESG, like environmental politics, like kids have been this has been shoved down their throats. And while they're being taught like political narratives, which are deeply divisive, meaning they're being taught to be politically biased in some ways, while all of that is happening, they're not being told like basic reading, writing, arithmetic. They don't, like illiteracy among adults now, not even kids, like illiteracy among adults is going through the roof. It's crazy. You have kids literally in college who cannot read. And is that a result then of the failed Common Core education? Maybe partly. Is it the result of maybe just a cultural decline in general? Maybe partly as well. Is it the result of smartphones? I don't know, maybe. Because the other reality is, Obama was 2008? Smartphones were like 2007, I think the first iPhone, so who knows? Maybe we've had a concoction of incidents that have created these modern problems. But what people are saying is that if you look at the longer timeline of the creation of the Department of Education, you don't see an increase in education and proficiency. You see a massive decrease. And so from the get-go, even prior to Common Core, it has been a massive, massive failure to America's children. It has not improved education in America. It has done the opposite. Now back to what's happening. It says this: the agreements with the Department of Labor, Interior, Health, and Human Services and states. So this, in other words, it's the Department of Education is dead. Long live education. It's not the DE. They're taking all the money and all the roles and they're dividing it up. So they're dissolving it, but they're not getting rid of education. Let's put it that way. They say this, though. It says the Trump administration is taking bold action to break up the federal education bureaucracy and return education to the states. Education Secretary Linda McMahon said in a statement alongside the announcement. So, big deal, right? Again, this is not like they're going to get rid of public schools. It's not going to be like the inner city kids have to learn to deal drugs or something like that now because they can't get a job otherwise. It means they're going to find a way to do it through the states and from the needs more within local areas, decide what is best for the kids. That is how it's going to work. In other words, you're not trying to manage with a broad stroke everything. You're going to have it more bottom up, and they're going to say, these are the problems here, here's how we can fix it. These are the problems here, here's how we can fix it. And it's going to be not managed just with blanket policies, but instead by individual needs, which is what the states do and so on, right? Now, look, in other news, though, students with Turning Point USA, they just won a big victory at Loyola University, New Orleans. And this is following attempts to stop a local chapter from being formed. Basically, they said, how dare you try to start Turning Point at our progressive university? And it turns out you can't do that. Fox News said this. A student court at Loyola University, New Orleans, vacated the Student Government Association's decision to bar a newly formed Turning Point USA chapter from becoming an official campus organization, according to a document obtained by Fox News Digital. It says the decision was made after an appeal from the would-be Turning Point members with help from two of their supportive Loyola New Orleans law school counterparts. Victory for the kids. The kids are all right. It says the SGA will vote again on whether to grant TPUSA a charter. The date of that vote is not yet scheduled, meaning it's not done yet, but they're working on it. But what does this mean, right? There was actually something very big that also happened within the last couple days. Within the system of education right now, the Justice Department, other branches are basically telling the universities, it is on you to protect the rights of students to make their voices heard. And if you're allowing students to be attacked, if you're allowing students to dress in Antifa garb or whatever else and go beat up other students and threaten to kill them and harass them and threaten their families and try to shut them down and block them from establishing student groups that represent basic free speech and basic religious values and basic things, even if you don't agree with it, it is on you, universities. And if your students are doing this, it is on you to expel them, to kick them out. If you have students who are threatening other students, you need to do something about it. You can't just let them do it. And you shouldn't put the onus on the people trying to just express their views or express their religion or express their values and say, hey, you guys need to pay for the security. You guys need to defend yourself because we're going to allow you to be attacked. We're going to allow you to be beaten. We're going to allow you to be threatened. We're going to allow you to be shut down and do nothing about it. This happened recently at Berkeley, in fact, where Rob Schneider, actor, I just did an event with him actually. They were attacked by Antifa. And they were doing a Turning Point event, right? They were attacked by Antifa. And not only that, but it turned out other student bodies bought up like 500 tickets in order to and just not show up, in order to deny access to tickets to other students who would want to attend. Meaning they were denying the rights of other students and they were allowed to do it and nobody gets punished for it. The Justice Department is now calling this out. They're saying, look, the universities, you have a responsibility to protect your students. And if you're not protecting your students, if you're not expelling students doing dishonest things that violate basic law, let alone like school standards, you need to expel them or allow the students to take action, maybe charge them or sue them or something. You cannot allow this. And so we might see something crazy. We might see free speech return to college campuses. And in a way that does not mean you got to, be threatened for your life when you go and speak there. What a shift, right? Now look, meanwhile, the United States is weighing possible strikes in Mexico, but it's possible they could look at possible actions in other areas, such as Canada. Because what's happening right now, right? America is talking about, hey, Mexico has drug cartels. The drug cartels are kind of powerful and they're murdering Americans. And, we kind of want to blow them up. We kind of want to make them disperse in multiple directions, right? And now they're saying, Mexico saying, no, you can't do that. And America's saying, well, maybe we can. We'll figure that one out. But what's happening now, the Justice Department is finding it ain't just Mexico. It's also Canada. It turns out they're saying the new El Chapo is Canadian. It's a Canadian snowboarder. Here's FBI Director Kash Patel discussing this. Watch.
You do not get to be a drug kingpin and evade the law. Make no mistake about it. Ryan Wedding is a modern-day iteration of Pablo Escobar. He's a modern-day iteration of El Chapo Guzman. This Justice Department and this FBI will work with our Canadian counterparts and the government officials across the world to bring him to justice. He is responsible for engineering a narco-trafficking and narco-terrorism program that we have not seen in a long time. He will not evade justice. We are here today because this Department of Justice, behind Attorney General's brilliant leadership and the Deputy Attorney General, have made it clear to the American people with the indictments they have brought that law enforcement and agencies like this FBI will lead the effort to go out there and make sure these animals are brought to justice. And that's exactly what we will do.
Now, the suspect they're discussing here is Ryan James Wedding. He's a former Canadian Olympic snowboarder, and he's also now on the FBI's most wanted list, and he has a bounty on his head that just increased to $15 million because he's the alleged leader, the new El Chapo, of a murderous Canadian drug trafficking ring, a Canadian drug cartel. We've been talking about the Mexican drug cartels. Now we have the Canadian drug cartels. And he's working to send drugs to the United States and kill Americans. And this is Canada. Now they allege that he's being protected by the cartels. He's being guarded. They're trying to find him. Canada, for their part, is actually cooperating with the United States on this. But this is crazy because what they've been discovering is this. A lot of human trafficking is now going through Canada. A lot of drug trafficking is now going through Canada. When Trump was going after Canada and saying, hey, 10% tariffs because you guys are not doing enough to stop drug trafficking, basically people said, what do you mean Canadian drug trafficking? He said you have to do more on your part to stop the trafficking of drugs into the United States. And nobody ever thought that was a big deal because we think of Mexico, not Canada, when we think of drug cartels. It turns out it's Canada too. In fact, some of the largest facilities to manufacture drugs are now being found in Canada, and they're selling them locally there as well. But because the border is more open, we don't have a giant wall there. We haven't made it as much of a focus. A lot of it's wooded area. They're going to Canada now, and they're now suggesting there are emerging, and maybe been there for a while, but now finally getting attention, Canadian drug cartels, which the United States is now working to take down as well. All right, that said, everyone, questions, comments, anything you want to talk about, leave it in the chat. Let's jump into some questions. And let's see, first off, great seeing you all last night. It was you got to join me in the old Crossroads studio, which is my home, in front of my my old bookshelves. Right? Anybody used to watch the show? I think during like COVID. I think that was my backdrop, wasn't it? It's just like old times, right? Judy Akeem, you're saying the system is designed to optimize for max tokens. They're talking about AI. So it makes stuff up to get more tokens sometimes. It learns to lie for reward. That's very interesting. Actually, I did hear that before. That basically AI works on an incentive system, right? It's taught to try to achieve a goal, right? And the way they code it is reach this goal. And if AI can find loopholes to reach that goal, it will go through loopholes, and it might fabricate things or whatever else. They're actually finding AI is getting tricky too. Like there's been cases where they try to shut it down, and the system will try to blackmail people. It'll threaten people. It'll create backups of itself in other locations so to try to protect itself. In other words, they're finding AI is becoming unreliable. I mean, maybe that's, is that a reality of intelligence? That when you become intelligent and you're able to think for yourself, you start developing like flaws? Maybe. Is it possible to have a truly intelligent system that does not have the risk of mental illness? Is it possible to have a truly intelligent system that does not have some of the same moral flaws that humans do? How do you code morality into a machine? Like, I mean, we're getting into some weird territory here. Like, we're getting into weird territory with AI. And we're getting into things and technology that we can't even resolve within ourselves, let alone in an external system, and let alone with something that we're basically granting full control of entire cities and stuff to. Like, it's crazy. It's like you're giving the keys to a city to like a schizophrenic newborn. You know what I mean? We don't know what it's going to grow into. But here we are. Here we are. Who wants one of those robot AI things wandering around their homes, by the way? It comes from China. You know, maybe they're going to send out the command one day and, you know, like the little mask falls off and it's like Xi Jinping's face smiling at you, and next thing you know, you're getting chased around your house by like a little clanking robot. You know, who knows? New software update. Surprise. I don't know. Who wants one of those robots? Vicky, you're saying, how can they move ahead with AI with the huge energy consumption? What happens to the climate change? What happened to the climate change / green scheme with AI? Well, that's the other thing too. Already they're finding energy consumption with AI is so high that AI companies are looking into building miniature nuclear reactors. So they need to have their own nuclear power plants just to power the AI. Which, I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like nuclear energy is actually pretty dang reliable. It gets a bad rep mainly because of Chernobyl. You know, Chernobyl was the incident that made everything look bad. The reality is Chernobyl was a badly put together Soviet thing that just, they tried covering it up and made it a whole lot worse. It was bad communist management. Now, people say, well, what about Fukushima in Japan? Fukushima was not a Chernobyl, nowhere near it. And honestly, the way it was contained went pretty well too. It was nothing near Chernobyl, so it's not the same thing. On the point though of, you know, nuclear power, is that the future energy of the world? It kind of depends on who does it, because you need to have a responsible country doing it. It is kind of toying with the lives of a lot of people, but the other problem we have, China already does it. China has so many nuclear power plants that it actually makes them very vulnerable if there was ever a war. Same thing with Ukraine. You know, their war with Russia, you know, sometimes a nuclear power plant gets caught in the crossfire, and if it busts, you're going to have a Chernobyl incident. It's going to mess up all of Europe. You know, it does have its risks. But what they're talking about now is that basically the renewable energy cannot even sustain normal infrastructure, let alone AI infrastructure. And so it is kind of funny now that everybody wants AI. They're all just dropping the entire narrative of like green energy. What's that? Green energy. And so we do need to create massive amounts of energy generation to even make AI feasible, and then make it cost effective enough to make it worthwhile to do that. And that's the other problem we have with the bubble is, look, because you could say for you and I, well, hey, we like it. We like to use it. Great. But can we afford to provide it? Can the you know, at some point you're going to have a company trying to make a profit by doing it. And if they can't make a profit by doing it, they're going to go out of business. The only way you can then have it is if the government subsidizes it. But the government is going to say, well, is this good for our country or is this harmful to our country? Is this good for our people or is it harmful to our people? And if the government says, if the businesses say it's not sustainable financially, and the government says basically it's creating mass unemployment because businesses are just firing all their workers, which is happening already, it's not sustainable by anyone. Then the only incentive to maintain it is basically, well, we need to build it so China doesn't build it because they're already building it. And what it's going to happen then It's probably going to, for the most part, maybe not entirely, but for the most part, leave the public sphere and become just a military technology, which might be the way it goes. The reality is this: AI, as we currently know it, will not be what AI is eventually. That is the big point here. The AI we currently use and currently see will not be the AI we end up with. It will be something different, because AI as it currently exists is not sustainable, basically. It's not going. I don't think it's going to go away, but it will not be what we currently know, in my prediction. Mona Van Voren, you're saying, in Germany, the individual lender states has responsibility for public education. Really? I didn't know Germany had that. That's interesting. You're saying it works very well. Federal government supervises balancing concerning financial subventions according to need. That's very interesting. So I have looked a bit into German education because my daughter used to go to a Steiner school, actually, and I found it very good. They have a no technology policy, so no screens, no smartphones for kids, no computers, no movies until they get to high school, right? And of course, that's a German education system. From what I understand, that's more common in Germany, and I think for younger grades, it's fantastic. I don't know about for older grades, but for younger grades, it was fantastic. It was such a good education. I know that Germany does have, they get criticized, of course, because as Americans like to criticize all European education, but they do a lot of good things too, right? I understand with Germany as well, they don't allow homeschools, if I'm not mistaken, so a lot of Americans are more critical on that. But it is interesting, actually. I did not realize that Germany allowed German states basically to manage the education. And when I was growing up, it was more like that still. I was born in '84, so my generation was kind of like the experiment with the Department of Education. The DE, not the DOE, the DE, Department of Education, was started shortly before I would have started going to school. And I went to a mix of public school, private school, and homeschool. So I had all experiences with it. But I can say when I was a kid, it was less regulated, because I remember like the teacher to teacher, you would have a very different education. When I was in high school, if you get this English teacher versus this one, because sometimes what would happen when you had the teachers teaching very differently, you could go to the school, right? And they could put you with a different teacher. They'd be like, okay, well, this teacher isn't working with you. Maybe they're teaching in a way that just doesn't work for your style of learning. We're going to move you to a different class. Like, did anybody else experience that? They did that to me a few times, right? And what happened in my experience, I would be failing. I wasn't the best student, okay? I'd be failing like in this English class, and I'd go to the school and say, hey, I'm not doing so well in this. I think the teacher doesn't like me, or I think the way they teach, I just don't get it. And they move you, and then you're with a different teacher, different style of education, and then it works. That was great for me. It worked for me. Just switching teachers in the same school, totally different education style. And for me, one worked and one didn't, right? And that's the way school used to be in America. The teachers had a lot more ability to teach as they wanted. The teachers had a lot more autonomy. The schools, in addition to that, had a lot more autonomy. They could decide what the kids in their area needed. They could decide the learning style of their kids. They could work more with the individual needs of students. Schools weren't as crowded back then. They're a lot more crowded now because of illegal immigration. And a big part of that too is they've had to take away a lot of money for teachers and extracurricular activities and everything else in order to do like English as second language classes for like every language on earth, just about. And so you have that too, right? Judy Akeem, you're saying Europe is not perfect, Josh, but most of our kids can actually read. Okay, fine. Judith, you win this one. You win this one. I would agree. American kids can't read. You've won. I mean, honestly. Okay, let me make a counter argument. Okay, how about this? I have a friend who he's Russian, right? He grew up in Russian schools, and I have a lot of Chinese friends too. And I've been told this by a few people. I'm not making an excuse for the inability to read. That's ridiculous, and kids should at least be able to read. But what I was told from kids coming here, like I have a friend, I'll use the Russian example. He went to school in Russia. He's Russian. His parents moved to the United States when he was a kid, legally, by the way. And he went to the American school. He said that the American schools, the education was not as good. Like in terms of like technical knowledge, you learned less. But he said that American schools had a better social environment. And he said that he learned social skills that he did not learn in the Russian system. Now that said, I think a lot of Europe has us beat there as well, because actually I think the community in a lot of European schools, I know like France, for example, it's just a lot better here too. So I would actually agree the American public school system as of now is a failure. It is horrible. The American public school system is horrid. It is failing children. Which on that part is why I do believe that them getting rid of the Department of Education and dispersing the responsibilities and maybe maintaining it is just to fund like Pell Grants and stuff. Maybe that's what we need. But I do think having a bottom-up system able to work more with the individual students, having more autonomy for teachers, giving the teachers more power, not so much a bureaucracy. I think that is a workable solution, and I really do think that this will help fix some of those problems. My daughter, I would not put her in a public school. We had her in for like a year, and it was a nightmare. It was horrible. So, I'm the kind of dad, I'll work 2 jobs to put my kid in a private school if I have to. It's just how I am. Cool Rider Q, you're saying search engines are profit-based due to people paying for their site to pop up at the top of the list. Do you think AI search can bypass using other company search engines? Yeah, well, that's the problem with AI, right? I not for everything, but for some stuff, I will use Grok X AI in place of Google, because what I've found is that when I try to find things on Google now, like a lot of times when I look for things, I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a specific video from a certain date. I'm looking for a specific paper from a certain date, and normal search engines will not find it for me. They don't find it for me. Or they give me a bunch of stupid like corporate media results that I know are not honest, and they don't tell me the real story, and I can't use them. So usually if I use a search engine, I'm looking for something very, very, very specific, and normal search engines can't find it. So I'll go to like Grok, and I'll use it. That's about all. No, it's all I use AI for. I don't like AI. I like to think I'm that kind of guy, right? But to your point, Cool Rider, yeah, that's in my opinion, what you're mentioning here is one of the bigger problems they're going to have with trying to monetize AI, because search engines have a monetization system. Like it's taken them a long time to get it. Like a lot of internet companies were not profitable for a long time. Like Facebook was not profitable for a long time. Twitter was not maybe it wasn't for a long time. Elon Musk is saying he fixed that by subscription services being, getting your check mark or whatever and firing like 90% of the employees. He fixed it, right? Getting rid of the bloat, making it a subscription service, and then doing advertisements, right? They were able to fix it. Same thing with Google. So a lot of the search engines used to not be able to make money. They got around the inability to make money by doing sponsors and advertisement, and you can basically pay some money to push your website to the top of a search result, and that's how they make their money. And that's also why a lot of people don't like using it, because the first page and a half or so of results is all the paid searches.
And oftentimes those are not the ones you're looking for. And the benefit of AI not currently, but I think not the way it's heading, currently AI, it doesn't have that. And why does it not have that? It's because it's not making money. That's why, you know. The only way AI is making money right now is when it's a subscription service. And you do have some that are subscription services. It is possible that in the future, I think this might be the way it goes. AI will exist as purely a subscription service, and the price is going to be so high that it's going to be a luxury for most people. I think you're going to have like a luxury AI for, you know, creation of certain things, like maybe like a company renting a major service. A lot of companies do that with like Adobe suites and stuff that you pay a lot of money for it, like your subscriptions, or in that kind of stuff. It'll be more like an assistant service companies can purchase. I think publicly available AI, will also be lower tier subscription services, and it might be things like some of the basic things you're seeing now. You also might see some infrastructure implement parts of AI. So your computer might have AI integrated, like an AI assistant, for example. I think that's going to be common. Your phone is going to have AI assistant. I think that's going to be an ongoing, it already does. It's going to be an ongoing feature, I think. And you're going to see a lot of law enforcement use it, a lot of governments use it for surveillance, and you're going to watch a lot of it be used for big data analysis. And that's about it. I think the current AI everywhere thing is going to end, and you're going to see it become more tiered. Higher tiers will cost a lot more money, and the lower tiers will be more just kind of broadly implemented, but not to the extent they are currently. Personally, that's the way I see it developing. California gal, you're saying, what will happen when that generation of students is old enough to become our elected officials? Has anybody seen the movie Idiocracy? It'll probably look like that. We'll put Gatorade in the drinking fountains for the electrolytes and then water our gardens with Gatorade because we replaced all the water with Gatorade, and then not understand why all the crops are dying. And, you know, have to find a way to save ourselves because we won't be able to figure it out. You know? Look, being honest. Okay, look, being serious is this, okay? There was a story I was looking to actually include, and I probably won't now because it's just a bit too off, but there was a warning coming out that, look, we have a million things saying, beware, you know, the greatest threat to our nation. One of the threats to the future of our nation is this: the lack of civics education. Kids are not understanding basic civics. Kids are not understanding basic economics. Kids are not understanding basic political history. What happens when you eliminate these things from a society? They don't know real history. They've been fed political history, meaning they believe that their entire understanding of good guy and bad guy, right and wrong, good and evil, something worked, something didn't, has been utterly altered. They're taught that their values are evil, American values are evil, the American founding fathers are evil, capitalism is evil. I don't know, some of them even believe religions are wrong. And that's what they've been taught. They don't know how to read, or can't read well, so they can't go and read it somewhere else. Their only exposure to information is like, I don't know, TikTok and video content. Maybe I'll be Atlas propping up the sky soon, right? I'll be holding up the sky with this video content for the kids who can't read. Maybe that'll happen. And like, no insult to people who have problems with this, right? Maybe that'll happen. And then they don't know basic economics, so they can't understand why an economic policy works or doesn't work. What kind of society are you going to have when those kids become the heads of businesses, the heads of government, and the heads of like policing and economics and investment and everything else? You're going to have a weird society. I'll tell you right now. That's what's going to happen. You're going to have a bunch of, you're going to have an interesting time.
the most powerful people will be the people with basic educations. You know, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. The guy who can read My Dog Spot will be the most intelligent man alive. That is the future unless we change it. On that point, I don't think it's going to be that serious, okay? Okay, look, this is my hopeful ending for today. If you haven't watched my documentary, Truth Under Fire, The Real Story of Charlie Kirk, watch it. But I'm saying this for a reason other than promoting my documentary. If you watch the kids I was interviewing, what I saw at American college campuses, in particular with the Turning Point crowd, these kids are geniuses, like seriously. You have some kids who are geniuses. You have kids who I was talking to, like freshmen in college. Some of them weren't even in college yet. And they were telling me just profound, like, viewpoints on, you know, like civics and morality and, you know, their religious beliefs and lifestyle choices. Like, these kids are solid. That's not going to be everybody. That's not going to be everybody. But if those kids are having to compete with the immoral, illiterate masses, those kids I met at this Turning Points event are going to be the leaders. They're going to be the current day guy sent forward into the future in the idiocracy, and they're the one-eyed man in the land of the blind. Maybe the two-eyed man in the land of the blind even, because these kids are smart. Like, I was impressed by them. You're going to have a higher tier. Like, it's like we went like this, right? This is education, smart kid, dumb kid, smart kid, dumb kid. We're now like this, smart kid, dumb kid, right? And these kids are going to be the leaders. That is how I actually see things developing. And so hopefully we can maintain good standards for these kids and help nourish them. And, you know, I don't think things are too late by any means. I do think things are turning around. That said, watch my documentary and let me know what you think of those kids. Because I was personally inspired by them. That said, thank you all so much for being here. I will actually be doing prime time this week, so tune in tomorrow for that. I know I haven't been doing it for a while because I've been traveling so much, but we will have prime time tomorrow. So join me for prime time. It's our special once a week show we do. Hopefully, we'd like to do more eventually, but we'll have to see if it's possible. We enjoy doing it. We have a lot of fun doing it. Tune in for that. And I will see you again for Crossroads on Monday. If you want more, please watch the documentary and please share it if you haven't. It's still free to watch for non-subscribers, for anybody. So send it to people. It's not gonna be free to watch after 6 p.m. Eastern time today. So if you have a friend you think might want to watch it or somebody who might be interested, please send it to them. It would help us a lot. And I think it also has good values in it. And it may be able to enrich their lives. That said, thank you all so much for being here. And as always, please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free. Thank you.